Thanks, Tobias. It's a great pleasure being here. And I think the topic we're talking about today couldn't be hotter. I mean, the housing market, the real estate market in general in the US and Germany. And yes, thanks for picking me as moderator. Even though maybe, Tobias, I'm kind of biased for the US market. I started my career in the German housing market. And after the apprenticeship, also in multifamily, and being lectured here at IREBS and Prof, I'm back in the real estate business. I mean, we are multifamily investors investing in US Sunbelt. So we're producing real estate like development and also have a portfolio of capital producing property. And I'm dealing with these questions: why should I invest in Germany or the United States every day? Because our investors are family offices and institutional clients. So this discussion is something I'm pretty familiar with. And talking about Germany, there is so much regulation in Germany. It's an aging society. And, people always ask me, why should I still invest in German multifamily? In the housing market, it's sticky. You can't lift up rents, endless leases, whereas in the state, you don't have that. So to start the battle with your side, but why should you ever invest in Germany?
Let's start with this historically. So we started the debates where we said, okay, I defend Germany and Rick defends the US. And we ended up in the opposite way. Then he is starts arguing, okay, in favor of Germany, and I was starting to argue in favor of the United States. So let me take the role of the defender of good old Germany and good old Europe here. I think one of the key roles that we have in cities is now redeveloped. The European cities have one big advantage compared to many of the US cities, namely that is the vicinity, that we have the 15-minute cities literally embedded in each city. So most of the German cities are so small that you can really walk there in 15 minutes. So even Frankfurt, you can do most of what you need to do in business, in shopping, and living in a comparatively small environment. So when we looked at the first step that we had this morning on work from home, that was literally playing on our cards and in Germany. Maybe not in Berlin so much, maybe not in Paris so much, but to these middle centers, I think we have an advantage. I think it's, and this cannot be underscored. That is the richness of and the mixed useness of the inner city. So this is what we used to call the classical European city. It's now coming out an advantage when we have to redevelop the old cities. I think the second advantage is that we have in comparatively undivided society. So of course we have our problems and of course there are our challenges, but given that now Donald Trump could be the next ruler in the United States again, this can only increase dividedness at my view. And of course we have our challenges in Europe that point to a similar direction, but the US has many in many cases, but here at the risk point is ahead of the curve.
Yeah, let me come into this is an interesting aspect. We're talking about Donald Trump, Rick. Obviously, that's an interesting question for everybody. For real estate investors, Trump wasn't bad, to be honest, but generally for a division of society, obviously is. How do you see it? What will be the impact on the real estate market when Trump will be back in the White House?
I was hoping to defer that question. So I am going to defer it. And you mentioned how wonderful the European cities are because they're so long. Now, I know you're buying apartments in the South. So I'm from Texas.
I don't know.
And for us to walk more than a block, it's illegal.
Yeah. And you must be German. To see somebody walking, it's a German. Okay.
I'm walking in Texas at the Target, we run down.
Yeah. I know, because we don't have this, to be honest. I mean, for us, so what cities are you investing in? the bulk of our portfolio is in Dallas. The big D and Austin.
But that is my hometown. Now, the joke about Texas across all property types, but multifamily in particular, is that no place in the world can overbuild it as quickly as Texas can.
And it does currently, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Places like Austin, Dallas, what we see in Dallas, delivery of 80,000 apartments, but for a German investor, it's tremendous, If you talk about 80,000 apartments,
that's tremendous even for Dallas. And you're seeing rents falling now. And it doesn't just overbuild it a little bit, and return to a normal situation. And in the space of the year, when we overbuild it, it's of epic proportions, leads to the collapse of the S&L industry, or the collapse in the Great Recession. I'm not expecting that level of collapse right now.
I think that's the next question.
But I do. I think it'll take several years for it to absorb all that. Now, Austin, I'd say if I were going to move back to Texas, Austin is the only place that I'd want to live. I remember Austin when it was 250,000 people. Today it's pushing 3 million with infrastructure based on 250,000 people. So traffic jams in Austin now are make Los Angeles look like a wonderful city. That said, Austin is a beautiful place. But getting back to the heart of the question, which is how hard or easy it is to build in the U.S. versus Germany. When I was building got my start building homes in Houston, out in the county, which is even less regulated than the city, and if it took us more than a half an hour to get a building permit, we can plan. Now
We're on the top of the decade.
Well, in California, where I live part of the year now, if you can get your building permit in less than 5 years, you've done merits. So now that the difficulty of getting permits is part of the value equation, and why many institutional investors historically stayed away from Texas and went out of Florida, precisely because they were so easy to increase supply.
But Texas is business friendly economy, right?
Well, yes, and it is very business friendly. And prices across the board are a lot cheaper than other places in the country. Now, you also have a situation, especially around Dallas and Houston and most cities other than Austin, where it's not exactly the sequoia trees and the mountains and the ocean that you find, or the Smoky Mountains. It doesn't have the beauty or the pressure to preserve the land that you will find in the areas that are have more natural beauty.
Yes. But the cost of living is rather low compared to California. And I wanted to talk to you also about California. Because, for example, for us as real estate investors, we prefer Texas to California, to be honest, because we don't have rent control in Texas, whereas in California we do. And that's also a German topic. And so we avoid it. And also the permitting seems to be very easier than in California. So we love Texas, to be honest, but how do you see rent control and the political development in the states? Will it be sprawling all over the US now, bring California and the coast to other states, or do you think rent control will be restricted to the coast areas, coastal area?
Well, I've made a living complaining about rent control, and as Tobias pointed out in the last section, I think if you line up 1,000 economists, 999 will decry rent control. It's like how awful it is. But as was also pointed out last session,
who's the one?
A misguided soul. But rent control operates very differently in different places. So if you have vacancy decontrol, which you've had historically in New York, the impact may not be so bad. Los Angeles, as a city, just not as draconian on rent control as the People's Republic of Santa Monica or Berkeley. Well, the years I lived in Los Angeles, for years, Santa Monica did not build any multi-family at all because you had if you owned a 3-unit building, one of those units had to be not just subject to rent control, but set aside for low income. So this didn't create 3-family individual houses. Took a long time until at the state level there were laws were passed, like in Massachusetts, that did away with rent control. But you're absolutely right. There are precedents to bring back rent control. And the real estate industry, of course, is fighting that. But that's one thing that certainly is a risk. The bigger risk, though, and what's causing people to disfavor California right now, it has to do with the business climate, high levels of taxation, and the fact that you've had over the last decade a massive movement of companies and people from California to Texas.
Right.
Now, the other side of that coin, you used to be able to get a 3,000 square foot house in Dallas for $200,000. And that same house today is probably $750,000.
Yeah.
It's still high in price of what it would be in California. But relative to what it was before, Dallas prices, I was astonished. My old neighborhood, which is one of the original Levittown style production homes that I think my parents paid $25,000 for in 1960. And I was guessing that house would maybe be $250,000. And it was on the market for $700,000. So there's been a massive increase which is, I think, going to work against Texans.
And it went up.
Maybe one footnote, because just to come back to the rent control issue, because economists are much softer when it comes to the second generation rental breaks compared strict cap, and when the rent controls are temporary, you get a shock situation match. Right? If you have only a 3-year rent control, then economists say, okay, we can deal with that, but don't make it temporary, because then investors really have a problem to adjust to that.
So has rent control ever temporary?
No, that is the problem. That is the problem. That regulators like to hear that. Oh, you're stopped on that, and that will be introduced. That's what's happening in Germany at the moment, right? They introduced a rental break. They had a phase out that time, and now they prolong it.
Yeah,
so that's what usually happens. So economists said, okay, it's okay, but keep us a tight end to it. And once you get closer to the end, they say, okay, now we need a prolongation. That is exactly what you mean. There's a built-in tendency to prolong for all eternity.
Exactly.
Well, and it's very hard to remove the corrections that have been happening to reduce regulation. And everybody knows that regulation and NIMBYism are the primary culprits when it comes to housing affordability.
And that is even more disastrous when you have something like a phase-out period one, and then the prolongation, because that investors really can't compute, right?
Yeah.
If you have a long-term period, say, okay, we have to deal with it, right, it's come down, and then we can manage.
Mm-hmm.
But when you invest in, okay, it is only 5 years, and then we can rise again, and that you're living in uncertainty, and this is the worst thing for investors, and that's also the worst thing that can happen to tenants, because they have, in the end, price and pay for this uncertainty.
Yeah, and building regulation. I mean, there was an explosion in Germany of building ordinances and all those things. So, Tobias, are there any politicians coming to you as a professor asking you about what can we do to make people invest into the market? Because we see that there are not enough apartments coming into the market every year.
Yeah, no, there are who's coming politicians, they're coming people from administration, from ministry, not very many, but of course there are more real estate economists in Germany and on the planet. And in fact, honestly, the the arguments are always the same. We repeat the arguments for the last few years. So, and Paula Prolager has said similarly in her presentation, very rightly, we have to increase supply, and we can only try to increase supply by making supply cheaper. So we can do that by regulation and getting the standards a little lower, or increase the volume of land that we provide. So there are not so many things that we can do. And obviously, if we simply try to implement a subsidy, that can go into prices. That's what Carla also found out. So we have to be careful and not try to adjust at the wrong end of the market. So the much easier thing is the much more correct thing is to adjust on the supply side. That is on the cost side.
Yeah, the cost side, because in Germany, like building for 5,000 to 6,000 euro per square meter. I mean, if you do it, you need a rent north of 20 euro per square meter to have an adequate return. So that's a dilemma, obviously, and the permitting process, and also all this in Germany. And talking about investor questions, let me come back to one question that many of our investors have. I mean, who are willing to invest in the United States, but who perceive that the state debt, and the shutdown of the government and all these issues, right, and it happens once a year or so that the discussion comes up. It's $30 trillion debt or something, and people have a whole lot of respect looking at that. Will inflation eat it up, or what's the solution? That's not a soft question. But could it?
Right now, I mean, we are, well, let's go back to the Trump tax cuts, which essentially, well, I don't think we've ever had a tax cut which favored the rich as much as Trump's tax cut did, and had a slow back on poor as it did. However, it did give everybody a couple $100 extra in their pocket, and so that's how they brought it along. The debt overhang is getting worse every year, and there is no fix for that in the U.S. They're not going to raise taxes.
Yeah,
and
the reason why I'm asking is that in Germany we have the same. It's not that demanding. But people here are afraid that there will be taxes, on real estate proprietors, particularly because you can't take a piece of real estate and run away. So you're stuck. And Tobias, what do you think? Is that a solution for the state to?
In India, we are very often comparing the normal household with the state. So for a normal household, for us, it's a problem if we are over indebted, right? So we have to pay back. The bank is coming to us. But for a state, the state is there for eternity. At least that is what we assume. For the answers have some kind of good track record over the last couple of years. So we can raise debt. So that is not the issue. We don't need to pay it back. We can prolong it for very long. The main question we have to ask is, what do we need the debt? And therefore, we have to differentiate. In the United States, they raised debt to build infrastructure, renew it. So much of what is done with the Biden Act is collecting money, or not collecting, spending money to build something, to get the infrastructure a bit better, to get manufacturing back in the United States, whatever. So this is the growth momentum. So it's an investment as we. In Europe, a much larger share of the discussion is, are we spending it on consumption? Let's say, like energy for per points now. So I would call it an investment. So is it something that we are rather pocketing some consumption aspects? And definitely have to ask ourselves at that table, will people that are giving Germany money in the midterm, if we are only spending it directly. So the most important question is not the level of the debt or the share of GDP. The more important question is, are we doing investment pieces with it? Are we rebuilding our schools? Are we rebuilding our bridges? Are we rebuilding our roads? Are we rebuilding our universities? Are we going into long term, or are we consuming it the next day? And generally we are discussing that with these debt break, right? And we nail it with a number. I mean, that is it is stupidly wrong because it assumes that every debt is similar. So,
but there is a short answer to your question, but you cut me off. I didn't give there is only one way out of this in the U.S. Since we won't raise taxes significantly at the federal level, except on real estate. That's not going to change the national debt, and we won't cut spending significantly, especially on entitlement programs. So the only solution is inflation. And so that's why current forecasts on interest rates, we have seen inflation come down dramatically from a peak of 8 or 9%. And we're still above the U.S. world average, which today is around 2.7%. We think that the U.S. is floating around 3%. But the hope and expectation that interest rates are going to come down, especially long-term interest rates, and some we may actually return to a low interest rate environment. That's just wishful thinking.
Yes.
I think we're in for a long period of interest rates that are generally in the range they are now.
Okay.
Now, you guys are too young, but I remember back when interest rates, it was something, 20% to the head. This is when Reagan came into office during the Vietnam War, and we had the oil embargo and a whole number of pressures that came together that created very high rates. And again, in real estate, we used to joke cap rates will always revert to 9%. Really?
Cool. That's not what that.
No, in Dallas, cap rates were above that because now it's always the softer part. And of course, we're in is this really a paradigm shift, or are we headed back toward 9% cap rate? So I'll leave that one.
In our generation, we have the same joke in Germany with 5%. Cap rate of over 5%.
Well, I used to build houses in Houston. Now, Dallas has some zoning and some limits on it. It's harder to build in Dallas than it is in Houston. But I was on the board of an investment company, and we were buying apartments in Dallas. In Houston in the early 2000s in the 7-8 cap range. And I thought, well, that's understandable, but recently I've seen cap rates in Houston, at least before the current increase, 4s.
Like what if I'm?
Yes, and I never thought I'd see that in Houston.
Yeah, that's right. But thinking about the interest rate increase we have behind us, I mean, what it did to transaction volumes is obvious. Yes, they came down. Multifamily is still rather stable, and office and the commercial sectors are under pressure, massive pressure in the United States. So the question to a professor of urban development obviously should be in this context, is like office conversion, that seems to be a big topic in a way. Like, will it happen?
I have to be doing research on that very topic in cooperation with Gensler, who have been examining over 1,000 buildings. And the bottom line of their research is that the percentage of office buildings that are economic to convert is somewhere between 15 and 30%. And there are a whole lot of reasons for that. But what that means is 70% of the obsolete office stock is going to have to be torn down. Yeah. Because it cannot be economically reused. And the figures I've seen, the 30% is on the upper end. And I think that if we had to pick a number, it'd probably be closer to 15 than 30.
Then we have similar estimates here where they try to estimate how many houses could be resulting from refurbished offices. And the numbers appeared high in the beginning, but then there was some caveats. It got smaller with every recalculation. I mean, in the last recession in 2002, 2003, in the last demand recession, 2002, 2003 on the occupier market. In office, we had a vacancy in Frankfurt of 18%, and literally not any significant refurbishment because it didn't pay. So I think the economic result can only turn out to be valuable if someone bears the cost of some depreciation. So there must be some people paying still.
But even with office, you can buy office buildings.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Even when you get to staff, many of them don't pencil.
Yeah.
And now I would have thought you'd be at a somewhat advantage in Europe versus the U.S. Because the older the buildings are, if they're made with masonry and they're lower rise, smaller floor plates, those are easier to convert than in 60s, 90 era and glass boxes. If you have a floor plate, of 30,000 square feet, you either end up with dead space between the core and the window wall. It's just too far. Now, Gensler had a very creative solution on one of their buildings in New York City where they actually cut out the area around the core and took that space and put it in 3 floors of penthouses. Now, granted, it was an expensive solution, but it made sense.
Yeah, we had that similarly in a book that we published after the Corona pandemic, where we said, okay, we can only win this battle if some investors lose in the lower floors, that we allow the city and the investor to add some additional floors on the top end, so we can increase the overall volume and allowing, therefore, to have some depreciation in the lower floors. So that could be some sort of was the Silke Whiteland or article in the book. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's another challenge. I remember when we two walked in San Diego through this mall, and you showed me.
What was one of my favorite dinosaurs?
Yeah, that was a very beautiful place, a dinosaur, but it was empty. So what is the thing with that in the US?
Sadly, I think it's being torn down. That was John Gerby's masterpiece. Ernie Hahn, one of the major national mall developers, it was his hometown. What was very interesting about Ring Plaza was if you picture an oval with points on either end, and then you move the oval, so it created a really wonderful design, and that was the first major redevelopment in the city of San Diego that really launched the rebirth of downtown and created the Gaslight District and brought a whole lot of housing downtown. And it just, the shopping center got obsolete, and I think sadly it's in the process of being torn down now. And I don't know what will replace
offices.
It's probably not on.
No, he was holding back to the city.
But San Diego, that's an awful lot going for it. And not just the climate, a very vibrant downtown. If you're right next to the riverfront, you're close to the convention center, and they have a functioning light rail system. So San Diego will do fine.
I like the city a lot. It's one of these cities that I like walking. And I was the walking person that you almost hit.
But if we are talking about the revenue again, we can go back to shopping already. Let's stop.
Well, Tobias, some researchers say we have enough apartments in Germany, just in the wrong areas and places. And we see in this state and Germany a trend towards urbanism, living in the cities. And with regard to digitalization and the internet, you can be in the Westerwald area or somewhere, in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern and work from there. What will be, in your opinion, the trend of the next years? Will it persist, urbanization, or not?
No, well, it is always a trade-off, right? I mean, cities offer some sort of benefits for the last 5,000 years, and so therefore they've been growing, but they have some problems. So people trade off. Are we willing to pay the price? What they can is probably like criminals or congestion, air pollution, all these problems of cities. But obviously there are big advantages. So every year they're traded off, and cities have been winning over the last 5,000 years. So and I think this is still going on because one of these advantages, we can meet people that are great. We can meet people that are inspiring us. We can sit together and have ideas. So later on, when we sit together outside in the ride and drink some wine, we have more better ideas than we have. So these advantages, meeting a lot of people, meeting a lot of creative people, is a big advantage. Having lower transaction costs, having lower production costs, having more variety to choose from, and that is lowering costs. So all that will remain. So, but we have to reinvent our cities a little bit, as usual. I mean, we are sitting here in this 900-year-old monastery. I have my chair in Regensburg, a 2,000-year-old city. This has been rebuilt several times. So we have to remodel our cities again a little bit. The city that we're currently living in is a model for the industrial cities. So, especially in the United States, we have pretty labor-divided cities, right? So there's production, there's office, shopping, that's living. Mm-hmm. So maybe we're going a little bit more towards a city that is what I used to like to call medieval, walking everything in one building, everything in one quarter. In Paris, they call it the 15-minute city, right? With 15-minute quarter because nobody needs a 15-minute city. So we are going a little bit towards that, and then cities, of course, will offer better benefits. So do we have enough apartments in Germany? Yes. But please argue that to the people who need to move there, right? Now, obviously, if we have apartments there at the moment, nobody is moving to these apartments that are having a rent of €3 to €5 per square meter. Well, they are obviously not cheap enough. And I doubt that they are cheap enough at €0 because the benefits are not there. So then we have space that we can use because some people, especially seniors, are living on 200 square meters, something like 2,000 square feet. Could they move out? Well, we have to change rental laws to do that. Will that happen? No. I'm a little hesitant, but what can we do? We can make our cities denser. When you go into Mediterranean cities, they are very dense and livable. When you go into Bamberg, very dense but livable. When you go to the inner city Berlin, very dense but livable. So density is not unlivable. We can't build dense, livable cities.
But we can't build cities that have the appeal and the attraction, medieval cities that you're alluding to, because the fire trucks have to be able to make what I mean. At least say in the Gun Beach, where we have a home, which is very hilly, and they have bought special smaller fire trucks to make the turns and so forth. Yeah. But still, it is the fire regulations really make it impossible to have the density. Well, you can get density by going up, but what you can't get is what is so appealing about the older where the roads are very narrow and the buildings aren't that tall and have a certain appeal.
I'm pretty great at those who can rebuild a split. But you can build a little higher. You can allow a little more variation in height. So this is possible. Okay, allow a little surprise in the building. So as I say, you're moving a little bit towards. You're not toppling.
Aren't population projections showing significant decline in Germany over the next decades?
Having wrote my professional thesis on demographics, that is a long ball. It's a projection that older that I'm sitting here. No, actually, yes, and we are going to have an aging population, but they are aging where they are. So they're aging in the cities. So this will be a long shot. So I think the next 10, 20 years are still comparably stable, especially when you look at residential. But having looked at demographic forecasts over the last 20 years, demographic forecast can change. And we have been in Germany looking at changing forecasts upside. I wouldn't be really surprised if they at one point can be coming down again. So I wouldn't bet too much on that. But at the moment, I would say, yes, we are comparatively stable over the next 10 years when it comes to residential. Not when it comes to office.
As long as the baby boomers are still there,
Have the baby in the backup. But a big difference is in the immigration laws. Now, this is precisely what is driving Trump's appeal.
Yeah.
But I admit I was shocked last night when I flew out of Logan and looked down at the lower level, and the floors were entirely covered with Asian immigrants who are, I don't know if they flew in or this is a place where they are putting them temporarily, but this is in the international terminal where.
So you're trying to scare me? I'm flying in on September.
Well, despite Mr. Trump's claims about the rapists and murderers of these immigrants, the statistics actually show that they're more law-abiding than your average American. So I don't think you need to worry too much.
Well, obviously, immigration in Germany and the States is ethical, but not illegal immigration, but structural and good immigration in a way. Structured immigration, because when we talk to developers in Texas, for example, they tell us they need immigration from Mexico because the workers on the construction side mostly come from Mexico.
When I was home building, each crew had a different nationality. The concrete guys were black. All of the main trades, tile, framing, trim, were Mexican. The entire sheetrock subs were controlled by the Hungarians.
No, really?
No. They take the plumbing fixtures and the ovens and
right. Well, Rick, thinking about, what is German investors who are really interested in, what are the main reasons to invest in the state? We always talk to it, and what would you recommend where to invest into multifamily, and how do you see the housing market in the next 20 years?
Well, that's a big question. And again, you're supposed to give him a great question.
I thought it's not right.
Well, you go where the growth is, and you're doing that. The other side of that coin is how easy it is to build.
No.
I'm personally a strong believer in California in the long term, partly because it's been so hard to build anything there. And the state and the people actually are recognizing that they have to do things to increase supply. And the same way on the East Coast. So I think it's not going to happen overnight, but I think there will be easing regulations that make at least multifamily somewhat easier to build. But at the end of the day, you put apartments where they're needed. Now, as you all know, the apartment market is highly segmented on the age group and the design and amenities. So it is highly differentiated. Even in senior housing, there's about 6 gradations from active adults and the communities like Sun City to nursing homes at the other end. And so there's always opportunities that you have to look at the detail.
But I always just think you're talking about California in such a positive way. Really, as a takeaway out of today. And talking about demographics again, population growth, that's one of the main reasons for our investors to invest in the state. The median age is like 38, and Germany it's 46. And it's strong growing country. So
yes,
that's a strong fundamental underlying for residential real estate, and it should work in the next years.
Now, the other longer-term factor we haven't talked about, climate change is going to have huge impacts in everything. But I'm on a couple of botanic garden boards in New England. And now 50 years from now, Boston weather is projected to be like North Carolina.
Okay.
And North Carolina will be like Florida, and Florida will be like Saudi Arabia.
Feeling not.
But I think what that means is we may begin to see the movement back toward the north. Over the last 50 years, we've seen this extreme out-migration from the Midwest and the Rust Belt cities. I can't say that I see any immediate turnaround for that, but I do think that in the long term, areas that have been seen as colder will become more attractive because it won't be cold as much.
Yes. And then sustainability, obviously, is an issue. Taxes, and this was surprising to me, is the state producing the most renewable energy, in the States. And in Germany, it's a big issue, Tobias, right? I mean, the Gebäudeenergiegesetz, building properties and taking this into account, whereas in the States, we don't see any regulation that we have to do this and use renewable energy. Whereas in Germany, we have to stick to it right now. That's a big difference.
Don't get misled by, yes, Texas does produce more renewable energy because they have a lot of wind out in West Texas, and there are an awful lot of windmills out there. But it's also by far the biggest producer of fossil fuels, and Texas pretty much invented fracking. I've done a lot of work in the Woodlands, which is arguably one of the 2 or 3 best new towns in the country, and they've actually had to deal with earthquake faulting because of fracking that was done. The Woodlands is owned and developed by Mitchell Energy, which was one of the inventors of fracking.
Yeah, I think one important aspect is America will follow the money as usual. So once you have climate change aspects priced in, they will react. They will react out.
They're like, So are they priced in yet? What's going to make them priced in?
Well, disaster will make them priced. Insurance are not paying anymore.
So far, the disasters, there's been government bailouts. And seriously, their expectation
is that
the government will continue the other side of it. We get our insurance from Chubb, one of the top insurers. They built their homes in Boston and California. They just quit writing any fire insurance in California. Now, suddenly, for a period, the only place you could go was Woolits for California at like triple the price. Mm-hmm. And then there were a couple of more local counties but still, you're right. Insurance is going to get more and more expensive.
Yes, and it's a pain for owners. We know what we're talking about because it's non-recoverable. Insurance costs, and you're sitting on it, and you can pass it on to the tenants in the States. Yeah, that's an issue. But anyway, rental increases are there and positive population growth. Whereas in Germany, well, we talked about it. But anyway, so in a nutshell, Tobias, I understood investing in urban areas in German cities still the no-brainer because there will be things going on.
Real estate investment is never a no-brainer. There are very a few years where it's a no-brainer, where interest rates are falling so rapid that it's not yet priced in. Otherwise, real estate is a brainer. Otherwise, we don't need to remember it.
Well, we're going to start 2011, and that's a no-brainer. After the giant collapse and prices are
both years
from the dollar. You're sticking there with cash. That's the no-brainer.
Interesting that you're saying the lowering interest rates is not something we can expect. Okay, so you expect interest rates to do.
That's in general where they are.
Yeah, as long as inflation is high, and prices are very high in the States, of course. That's something you realize going to a restaurant or something, and home ownership is also not affordable to many these days. So this is why we say renting is something that needs to be done, of course, in the next years. So the home ownership rate should go down, right?
Well, it should. Remember, in German, the percentage of people who rent in Germany is way around 55%.
Yeah.
Whereas in the U.S., it's down in the mid-30s at its lowest. It's creeping up. But
The trend is
the American dream of home ownership is getting harder and harder. And then it makes a lot of sense to have home ownership in the form of flats or condos. But in California, you know a developer with a brain will build a condo because you're guaranteed to get sued by the attorneys to wait for there's a 10-year tail, and they go to the people on the board and say, if you don't sue your developer before the 10 years runs out, you're allowed to be sued by the other owners. So that ends up not being a good option.
Yes. So last question to you guys. I mean, Tobias, what would you invest in? Which sector in Germany if you had the choice and the money?
Well, neither choice nor money. So
At the end.
I think residential is a comparatively safe play because we don't build enough. So therefore, there is a lot of pressure, though it's comparatively stable. However, it's or comparatively expensive still. So what could be a comparatively good play or some return is refurbishment of more opportunistic offices into whatever, mixed use, or new offices, or energy efficient office, whatever. So analyzing the current office stock is something like a better play at the moment if you really want to have some return. So the other one is comparatively low return, but very stable.
Okay, this was an add to the study here at IREBS, right? Yeah, I think. Okay, Henry, what would you do if you had the money and the ideas?
Right now, I would go buy retail in Union Square in San Francisco because it's at a historic low.
It's a sort of
what has driven the disaster for people writing off San Francisco has been the drop in tourists due to COVID. We know from studies that academics like me do that what drives, especially high-end retail, is international tourism. If you eliminate that, you end up with a situation like Union Square. Ironically, retail, which has been doing terribly, and has the lowest vacancy rates. I'm personally invested and believe in last mile industrial, though rents and prices in Southern California went through the roof, and that's backing off a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm always a believer in multifamily, and I do think there's going to be real buying opportunities in office. But where office makes sense is that you're delivering office with all the high-end amenities. You know, we've had a huge boom in office in Boston. It's all life science, and it's way overbuilt. So right now, you may be able to get a good buy on an empty life science building. Very appealing.
A clearly anti-cyclical strategy. Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure talking to you, and these were good hints also for the audience what to invest in.
We'll talk about Donald Trump next time.
Next time.
We're going to talk about the reflect narrative. So thank you. May I ask to conclude and close the whole session? Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Stay there. So, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your great preparation. Christoph, thank you, Rick, for joining us again. Well, I'm happy to have you here. Hope you join us some days again in Germany in the next couple of days. Tobias, come to I would like to get the little hits on our seminars and our student programs. You know, we are one of the leading real estate educator. Please have a look on our MBA programs, on our Immobilienökonomie, and our seminars, especially on ESG and sustainability. Please stay in touch with us, and thank you very much for joining us on the 4th Forum of Excellence next year, and say bye-bye. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.